The year is 2035. You're an American tourist visiting Europe. You start your morning with a croissant in Paris, take a Hyperloop to Rome for lunch, and finish the day with a beer in Berlin. It's beautiful. The architecture is stunning. The history is everywhere. But something feels off. The streets are clean, but quiet. The cafes are full, but mostly with gray hair. And when you try to buy a souvenir, you realize the shop isn't owned by a local. In fact, entire city blocks, the ports, even the energy grid are owned by foreign conglomerates. You're not walking through a superpower anymore. You're walking through the world's most expensive open-air museum. Back in 2008, the economies of the European Union and the United States were roughly the same size. In fact, Europe was slightly bigger. They were economic twins. Fast forward to today, and those twins have separated. While the American economy rocketed past $27 trillion, Europe largely stagnated, barely crawling beyond $17 trillion. The gap between them is now so large, it's effectively the size of the entire Japanese economy. How did a continent with the highest standard of living, world-class healthcare, and centuries of accumulated wealth fall so far, so fast? Spoiler alert, it wasn't an accident, it was a suicide. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to dissect the 6 fatal wounds bleeding Europe dry. From German factories going dark, to Italy's empty nurseries, to the regulatory stranglehold in Brussels. Welcome to the decline of the old world. And if you think this is exaggerated, look at the numbers. Since 2008, the US economy grew by 87%. The EU grew by just 13%. If this trend continues, the average European in 2050 will be poorer than the average resident of Mississippi. Yes, let that sink in. So grab your espresso while you can still afford it. Let's start with the first nail in the coffin. 1. The great de-industrialization. The German engine stalls. For decades, the economic heart of Europe was Germany, and the heart of Germany was heavy industry. Cars, chemicals, machinery, the physical backbone of the modern world. The formula for German success was simple, brilliant, and deeply cynical. Use American security to stay safe. Use Chinese demand to sell cars. And most importantly, use cheap Russian gas to power the factories. It worked until it didn't. When the Nord Stream pipelines blew up, both literally and economically, the German business model evaporated overnight. Consider BASF, the largest chemical producer on Earth. They make the materials inside your toothpaste, your sneakers, your car, and your medicine. Their headquarters in Ludwigshafen is basically a city unto itself. In 2024, BASF made a decision that should have terrified every politician in Berlin. They began shutting down major production lines in Germany. Why? Because chemical manufacturing requires massive amounts of energy. And thanks to the loss of Russian gas combined with a botched green transition, electricity prices in Germany reached levels that made production mathematically impossible. Instead of staying, BASF committed $10 billion to build a new mega facility in Zhanjiang, China. Think about the irony. Germany, a country obsessed with environmental and human rights standards, is forcing its own companies to relocate to China, a nation burning coal at industrial scale just to survive. And this isn't isolated. By December 2024, German industrial production fell to its lowest level since the 2020 lockdowns. Europe isn't transitioning, it's hollowing itself out. And here's the dark comedy. Germany shut down its last 3 nuclear power plants in April 2023, at the peak of an energy crisis. Clean, reliable baseload power, gone. To compensate, they restarted coal plants, bulldozing villages to mine brown coal, the dirtiest fuel on Earth, all in the name of saving the environment. You couldn't write better satire if you tried. But can't Europe pivot to high-tech services like the US? In theory, yes, if it hadn't regulated its tech sector into a coma. We'll get there. For now, understand this. Europe built its wealth by making things, and today, factory doors across the continent are flipping from open to closed. 2. The demographic death spiral. Empty cribs, empty futures. If de-industrialization is a heart attack, demographics are cancer, slow, silent, and fatal if untreated. Take Italy, incredible food, great wine, almost no babies. In 2024, Italy's fertility rate fell to 1.18 children per woman. Replacement requires 2.1. Anything below 1.5 is a demographic emergency. At 1.18, you're looking at mathematical extinction. Picture a 25-year-old Italian named Matteo. He has a degree, but the economy is stagnant. He can't find stable work. Rent is insane, so he still lives with his parents. Meanwhile, the state expects Matteo to fund the pensions of a massive retired generation. Europe's pension systems are pay-as-you-go. There is no vault. The money retirees receive comes directly from today's workers. In the 1960s, 4 workers supported each retiree. By 2050, in countries like Italy and Spain, there will be fewer than 2. Do the math. Two people paying for themselves, the government, and the full retirement and healthcare costs of a third. What happens? Taxes explode. So what does Matteo do? Does he stay and surrender 60% of his income to support a system that will collapse before he ever retires? Or does he leave for the US, Australia, Switzerland? He leaves. This triggers the death spiral. Young people flee, the tax base shrinks, taxes rise on those remaining, and even more leave. In 2024, Italy recorded fewer than 370,000 births, the lowest number since unification in 1861. And politically, nothing changes. Old people vote. Cut pensions and you lose elections. Mass immigration sparks backlash. So governments borrow, delay, and pray. The cliff is now in sight. Interactive element. If you were Matteo, would you stay or would you leave? And we're only 2 moons in. Germany de-industrialized, Italy depopulated. Surely Europe has a plan to innovate its way out, right? 3. The innovation vacuum. Europe's tech graveyard. Name a European smartphone. Nokia, dead. Ericsson, irrelevant. A search engine, a social network? Exactly. The modern economy is digital, and Europe is a digital colony of the United States. The Magnificent Seven, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, Tesla, are worth more than the combined stock markets of the UK, France, Germany, and Italy. 7 companies outweigh the industrial output of the Renaissance. Europe has the talent. The web was invented at CERN. DeepMind started in London. The problem is regulation. There's an old joke. America innovates, China copies, Europe regulates. While Silicon Valley built AI, Europe wrote the AI Act. Policing an industry it doesn't even lead. Startups face fragmented markets, legal labyrinths, and regulatory drag. When they succeed, they get bought. DeepMind, Google, Skype, Microsoft, Booking.com, American-owned. Europe incubates, America harvests. In 2008, Europe held 30% of the world's top 100 companies. Today, under 14%. The future is built in San Francisco and Shenzhen. Europe watches on devices designed elsewhere. 4. Capital flight. Why money is leaving. Money tells the truth politicians won't. And it's leaving Europe. Americans invest. Europeans save. 58% of U.S. households own stocks. In Germany, 18%. Capital markets are shallow. Startups can't scale. So companies list in New York. Arm, Spotify, BioNTech, Birkenstock, all European, all trading in the U.S. Even Norway's sovereign wealth fund pours its money into America. Europe funds its own decline. 5. The energy suicide. Green dreams, cold reality. Energy is the master resource. Europe shut nuclear, banned fracking, built intermittent renewables, and relied on Russian gas. When Russia invaded Ukraine, prices exploded, up to 10 times U.S. levels. European industry paid 3 to 4 times more for electricity than competitors. You can't win like that. And while Europe de-industrializes to cut emissions, China builds 2 coal plants a week. 6. The end of the peace dividend. For 75 years, Europe lived under American protection. Guns were outsourced. Welfare was prioritized. Now war is back. Ammunition stocks last days. Militaries are hollowed out. Rearmament is expensive, and every euro spent on tanks is one not spent on pensions or hospitals. With stagnation, aging populations, and no growth engine, the math doesn't work. Mario Draghi said it plainly. Without radical change, Europe faces slow agony. The choice is stark. Renaissance or museum. Reform or managed decline. History doesn't care about nostalgia. Europe conquered the world, invented modern economics, and built civilization. And in just 30 years of complacency, it threw it away. If it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. If this depressed you, good. That means you were paying attention.